Hey guys, this is Jeff with Leostream, and in this video I'm going to go over how you can utilize Terraform and Ansible for automation in vSphere. I'm going to give you a full example of me utilizing this. First, I'm just going to run through a quick PowerPoint showing you the overview of the project, the overview of Terraform for Leostream. This is how we're going to go ahead and provision the virtual machines, in this case the broker and the gateway VMs in vSphere. This is how we can manage our infrastructure components as code. We're going to utilize variables, as you'll see, for flexible configuration. This will also generate an inventory for Ansible to use to continue the setup. The core commands for Terraform that you need to know are Terraform init, which downloads providers and initializes the environment. Terraform plan, this will just show us what's going to happen if we run Terraform apply. Terraform apply, which will actually go ahead and create and modify or modify the resources. And Terraform destroy, which will clean up and remove all the resources. The Terraform project structure, we have the main.tf file, which is the core infrastructure definitions, the variables.tf file, this input variables and configuration schema, the terraform.tf vars, environment specific variables. This will be the variables that if you knew nothing about this, you would have to update, and that should be it. The outputs.tf, this just outputs the VM names created and the IP addresses after you run Terraform apply, as you'll see in the example. The inventory.tf, this generates an inventory for Ansible to use. Inventory.tpl, this is a template used to create the inventory.ini, which is the Ansible inventory file. And the cloudinit.tpl, this injects the SSH key and initial setup for new VMs. From a customer configuration perspective, as I just mentioned, the terraform.tfrs would be the only file that you should need to modify. The purpose of this file is it defines the environment specific variables for the deployment. The variables located here, the vSphere connection setup, this will be your username, your password, your vSphere server, your vSphere infrastructure, your vSphere template definitions. So to make Terraform work, you're going to have to create a template in vSphere, and you define this here. This also includes deployment scaling. So for instance, if you wanted to deploy 2 brokers and 2 gateways, you could set this here. You also have the ability to decide how much CPU memory and disk space you want to allocate to the VMs you're provisioning. Once Terraform's completed, Terraform's what we use to provision the infrastructure. Then to do the actual configuration on the machines, that's where we'll switch over to Ansible. So Ansible will automate software installation and configuration after Terraform provisions. Ansible is going to go ahead and install the broker and the gateway software. It'll also update the system software. It has the ability to license the broker connecting to an external database or by running a license command. And this can fully configure the Leostream environment with no manual setup required. The core commands of Ansible are running the main playbook using the generated inventory from Terraform. And you can also just run a specific role or tag. So for instance, if you only wanted Ansible to run the tasks under the broker, you could use the broker's tag. The Ansible project structure has the site.yaml file, which is the main playbook, putting together all the roles. The Ansible file, which is an optional helper script. The group vars / broker, which is the variables for the broker role. The roles / common, shared setup tasks. Roles broker installs and configures Leostream broker, and roles gateway installs and configures the Leostream gateway. From a customer configuration perspective, the only spot you should need to modify is under group vars / broker. And the purpose of this file is it defines the needed variables for license installation or joining to an external database. Also provides the broker version to use for installation. The variables located here are the installation method, so that's either using an external database or a license / serial number. And the RPM to use during installation. All right, now I'm going to walk you through a practical example
of how you can utilize Terraform and Ansible to automate a Leostream deployment. For this example, I'm going to start with just ensuring you have the prerequisites installed. The prerequisites will be SSH enabled, Ansible installed, and Terraform installed. For my example, I'm using Ubuntu and vSphere. You can use any different Linux distribution you want or Windows subsystem for Linux. I just want to note that the commands you run may be slightly different. So first we're going to just double check and confirm Terraform is installed. You can do this with Terraform -- version. And we can see I have Terraform installed here. Then we're going to check if Ansible is installed. You can do this with Ansible -- version. I also have this installed. We're going to ensure SSH is enabled. And we can see it's enabled. From here, the final thing we need to do is make an SSH key, which will be used by Ansible and Terraform to provision and the machines. So we can do SSH-keygen-t RSA-b 4096-c capital C automation at leostream.com, and make sure you leave this command exactly the same. And we'll see this generating. It's going to ask where you want to save the file. You can just leave this as is, but note that location. For me, I'm just going to overwrite it because I already have one. And for a passphrase, you don't need to do this. You can just hit through this. Next, once this file is generated, we can open the file. We'll just do nano/home/jeff/.sh/id_rsa.pub. And for you, where it says your file is saved in, that's the path you would use. And from here, you just need to save the contents of this file to your clipboard or however you want to save them, because we're going to be putting these contents into our template VM. So this is the first step, just ensuring the prerequisites are installed and you have the SSH key generated. From here, I'll see you in the next step. Alright, so we're back. We just finished confirming we have Terraform and Ansible set up, and we got the SSH key generated and saved to our clipboard. So now we're ready to go ahead to the next step, which is setting up our template VM. This is the base image that Terraform is going to use in vSphere to provision the virtual machines. So the first thing we can go ahead and do is just download the Leostream Terraform and Ansible files I've configured. You can do this by going to the URL downloads.leostream.com/leostream-vsphere-deployment.zip. You can see me doing this here. Once you have that, we can see it downloaded. We'll go ahead and just unzip it. And now we'll see a Leo-vsphere-automation folder. We can go ahead and change directory into this folder. Inside this folder, you'll see two more folders, Leostream-Ansible. This will be used for Ansible configuration after we're done with the template, and Leostream-Terraform. This will be used for the Terraform configuration. And then we have this template preparation file. This is the file. We're going to follow these steps to set up our template image, and this will be required for this to work. So I'll just go ahead and read this here. You can see there's a list of steps that we're going to complete, creating the automation user. So now I'll go ahead and switch over to the template image, and I'll actually complete these and show you the process. So you can see me here on my template image. This is just a base Rocky 9 image with no updates or anything done to it. So we'll just go ahead and follow these steps. And to make it easier, I got this ready ahead of time. These steps on here, so you just copy and paste them. The first thing we'll do is step 1, which is logging in as root. Next, we need to create the automation user, so you could just go ahead, and I'm going to do the same thing, just copy and paste this from here. Okay. And now we need to grant this user passwordless sudo privileges. This will be required for Ansible to work. Next up, we need to make the SSH directory for this user in the authorized key file. And if you look closely at these commands I'm copying, the last command is nano, and that's going to open up a text editor. That's where we're actually going to make the SSH key. So this is where, when I told you to copy it to your template, or when I told you to copy it to your clipboard, this is where you needed to paste that. So I went ahead of time and got this ready. And I just need to copy this. And we can go ahead and paste this in here. Save the file with Control X and then Y. Next up, another important step is setting up cloud init. So we could just go ahead and do sudo dnf install -y cloud init. And this should be pretty quick, so we'll just let this do its thing. Okay, that's complete. Now, I think it's worthwhile following this next command, just verifying that it's installed. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, great news. We can see it's installed. And now we're going to do this command step 6, modifying the permissions and ownership of the key. Okay, now the final step is we need to, from our automation VM, in my case, the Ubuntu machine, we need to make sure we can SSH into it using the automation user. So on this template VM, I'll go ahead and just find out my IP address and jot this down. We can see it's 10.110.3.152. So I'm just going to go ahead and jot this down. And for the final step, we can move back to our automation VM. We're going to do SSH automation at and the IP you got. And if it asks you this, you can just type yes. And we can see we're actually in that machine now. So from there, we're on the final step of our template setup, which is just to go ahead and go to vSphere. And we're actually ready to power this machine down now. Everything's ready. We just need to convert it into a template. So you can go into vSphere, you can power it off, or you can do that through in the system. Once that's completed, right click on the machine you just set up, click on template, click on convert to template, and hit yes. And from there, we're all ready to move on to the Terraform portion. All right, so we're here on our automation VM, and we're going to go ahead and set up the Terraform portion. So first, you can just list out your files, and we need to move into this leo-vsphere-automation folder. So I'll go ahead and do that. And just to make it nice and easy to see, I'll clear the screen. Now we can move to our Leostream-Terraform folder. And for configuring this, the only spot you'll need to enter in any variables is under the terraform.tfvars file. So we'll go ahead and open that with nano terraform.tfvars. And I'm just going to walk through the variables here, and then I'm going to pause the video, and I have these variables ready myself. I'm going to enter those in. I'm not going to show you them just because there's some confidential things such as the password. But the variables that you will need will be your vSphere username. This will be, obviously this user will need permissions to create VMs. The vSphere password, the vSphere server, some vSphere infrastructure details, the data center, the cluster, the data store, the network, the folder you would like to place the virtual machine in. This is where you'd specify your template. So in my example, it was named example-template-1, so you would put that here. And there is the option to use a different template for the gateway and the broker. I don't anticipate many people doing that, but it is an option. So if you wanted to, you'd follow the same steps we just did and then specify different templates here. You'll also need to put in the public key path for that SSH key we generated earlier. And this is some deployment scaling options. So for instance, in the first example, I'm actually going to do 2 brokers and 1 gateway. This is where you would change the number of brokers and gateways you wanted to deploy. This is the hardware specs. So if you wanted to add more CPU memory or disk size to either the broker or the gateway, you have the option to. So from here, I'll go ahead and pause this and I'll update my variables accordingly, and then I'll come right back. Okay, so I just got done filling in all my variables in my terraform.tf vars file. Now I'm going to walk you through the process of actually running Terraform, and I'll make this window a little bigger so it's easier to see. So the first thing we can do, as mentioned in the PowerPoint, is initialize Terraform. We could do sudo terraform init, and depending on your privileges, you might not need to run sudo. For me, I'm going to do it for all the Terraform commands. Okay, so we can see it's initialized. Now this is an optional step, but just to show you, you could do sudo terraform plan, and this will just show you what Terraform is going to provision if you were to run Terraform apply. So you can see a bunch of output here showing us some of the things it would provision. Next Terraform command will be sudo terraform apply. We'll go ahead and run that, and this is actually going to provision the VMs. It should provision, based off my variables, 2 broker VMs and 1 gateway VM. And I think it's worth noting, in Terraform, this will just provision the machines. We're going to use Ansible afterwards to do the configuration. So I'll go ahead and run this. And you're going to need to enter in yes here. There are programmatic ways to just make it automatically accept this. For the example, I'm not going to do that. So we can see it starting to create here. I anticipate this will take a few minutes. I'm going to pause this, and once it's done creating, I'll go ahead and show you the results. Alright, so the Terraform provisioning just completed, and I just want to go ahead and show you the results. So it took about 5 minutes or so. So we can see this is right after I entered the value of yes, and we see gateway 0 creating, so 1 gateway, broker 1 and broker 0 creating. So you can see I specified 2 brokers and 1 gateway. We see them creating. I'll just give you some messages along the way showing you it's still doing something. So after 4 minutes and 46 seconds, we can see the creation complete. And you'll see this outputs. This is from our outputs.tf file. This will show us the summary of what was created. So we have Leostream-broker1 with an IP address here, Leostream-broker2 with an IP address here, and the gateway with an IP address here. And also, just to check in vSphere, we'll go ahead and check and make sure these are there. So I specified to put them in this Terraform-project folder, and we can go ahead and see a broker 1 now, a broker 2, and a gateway. And just to look closely, if we check broker 1's IP, we can see 10.110.3.82 right here. So we can just go ahead and you'll see in the outputs for the broker IP 10.110.3.82. So the VMs have been provisioned with Terraform, and we're ready to go ahead and move to Ansible now. Alright, time to move to Ansible. So we're currently in the Terraform directory. We'll just clear our screen, and we'll go back a directory. Where we want to be is inside the Leo-vSphere-automation folder. From here we can list everything out. And we're going to change directory to Leostream-Ansible. Clear everything out again, and from here we can see everything that's in here. The first thing of note is this inventory.ini file. This was actually generated by Terraform, and this lets Ansible know about the machines that we've already created. So we'll just take a look at this just to show you what's inside there. And you can see we have the 2 broker VMs and the gateway VM. Some other things in here to take note of are under roles. We're not going to actually need to do any configuration, so this is purely just me showing you this. But under roles, we have 3 different roles. We have the broker role, which inside that, I'll go ahead and show you that. There's a tasks folder. Inside this, there's a main.yaml file, and inside this file will be the tasks that would only happen on the broker. the gateway role is the exact same, and the common role is things that would happen on the broker and the gateway. So just as an example, I'll just cat the broker main file, and we can see certain things like connecting to an external database or utilizing a license and serial number, installing the RPM. So that's more just informational. We can clear this out, and we'll go ahead and navigate all the way back to the Leostream Ansible folder. From here, we'll go to where we actually need to configure, which would be under the group vars folder. So we can change directory into group vars. And from here, we need to go into this broker file. So we'll do nano broker.yaml. And I'm just gonna, the same as the tfvars file, I'm gonna walk through the variables that you would fill in. And then I'm gonna pause this, fill them in myself, and then I'm gonna do an example. So my first example is going to be using an external database. You can see here the first variable is the license option. And the options are using an external database. This connects to an existing external database. This would not have the ability to create a new external database. Or the license option, which this would license a broker using a serial number and your email. So what you can fill out here is your broker serial number and your broker email. This is really only required if you use the license option. Or you can fill out database information, which would be required if you use the external underscore database information. You're also welcome just to fill them both out, which is what I'm going to do. And then down at the bottom, this is the broker RPM URL. So this is what version of the broker will be installed. For this example, we're going to use the broker 2025.1.5. And I should note this Terraform and Ansible configuration will only support the 2025 versions of the broker. If you needed a different version, like a newer version, say 2025.1.8, which was just released, you'd have to reach out to Leostream support for that download link and then put that in here. So now I'll go ahead and pause this and I'll fill in my own variables. Okay, so I just filled out my broker file under group vars. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you how we can run Ansible. So from inside this folder, I'll show you an example that won't work just because it may be helpful. So we'll try the command ansible-playbook-i to specify our inventory file, inventory.ini, site.yml. And we'll run this, and this isn't going to work because since we're not in the file or the folder where these files are located, from here we'd have to do the full path. I just wanted to specify this in case it was helpful, so we can see it can't find it. So we'll change directory. We'll go back, clear our screen. We'll present our working directory. Currently, we're just in the Leostream-Ansible folder, and if we were to list the objects here, we can see the inventory.ini in the site file. So now we know that command will be able to see them. So I'll go ahead and run this. And for this command, we don't want to run sudo because this command needs to find the SSH key in the user account, the Jeff user for this example. So we'll go ahead and just run this as is. And now we'll see it start to run through everything. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pause here. Once this is completed, I'll go ahead and show you everything that was completed, and then we'll take a look at our brokers that were provisioned and the gateway and see how everything turns out. So Ansible just completed running, and I'll go ahead and show you everything you would have saw if you were watching this run. So from the beginning, this is where I ran the Ansible command, and we can see these tasks, these common tasks, ensuring the sudoers file, ensuring the automation user has passwordless sudo. So since this is common, this will run on the broker and the gateway. We can see it updating all the packages on the system. We can see it installing the broker RPM directly from that variable we specified. We can see it rebooting after. We can see it skipping the apply Leostream license command. Since we specify we want to use an external database, it also skips showing the output of that command. We see it generating a random site ID. This is required for the external database. And we can see that here. We see the broker switching to the external database. See the command output. And we see us configuring the gateway, we're installing the gateway, registering the gateway with the broker, rebooting. So we can see everything completed here. So what we'll go ahead now, we'll just cat our inventory.ini so we can remember what our IP addresses are. And we're going to go ahead and actually check now and make sure everything looks good. So we have two brokers. We'll navigate to our browser and we'll try the first broker's IP. And this broker should be able to connect, and it should be connected to an external database. The database I connected to is pretty minimal. There's just a few users in there. Oh, we're actually going to go back and we're going to do the /admin because this database does have SAML set up. So I'll go ahead and log in to the first broker. And down here we can see it's using an external database. And just to make sure there's fields in this database, we'll go under users and we can see my user. So we can confirm this one worked correctly. We'll go back to our automation VM. We'll also check the second broker. And back to here. We're going to do the /admin again since I have SAML, which won't let you log in unless if you do that. We're going to go ahead and log in. And here we can also see it's using an external database. If we were to go under to users, we can see the same users. And under high availability, we'll actually see all of our brokers. Next up, we'll try the gateway. So one of the gateway commands was allowing you to log in utilizing this gateway IP address. So we'll go ahead and try the same thing with the gateway's IP and just make sure that's functioning properly. And here we can see the same thing connected to the database and just a quick check or the users. So we can see everything's functioning properly. This was an example of utilizing Terraform to provision the VMs and then Ansible to connect using an external database. So now that we're done with this example, I want to go ahead and move on and show you an example of me using the licensing option. I'm going to change a few things in my variables. I'll go through those as we go. So now I'm going to show you how can we delete these virtual machines. We're done with this broker. We're done with this gateway. I'm going to show you the Terraform destroy command now. So what we'll do is we'll navigate back a directory. And you can see we're in the Leo-vSphere-automation folder. If we list everything here, we'll see the Leostream Terraform. So we'll go ahead and change directory to the Leostream Terraform directory. And we'll do sudo terraform destroy. This will destroy any of the machines Terraform has created. Enter in my password. And we'll type yes. And we can see it's destroying these machines now. This is pretty quick, so I'm not going to pause or anything for this. And we can see the machines are destroyed. So now just to go ahead and double check and confirm they're destroyed, we can navigate back to vSphere. And we can actually see in this Terraform project they're not there anymore. And if we look closely under recent tasks, we can see them being deleted as well. So now that we've destroyed these, I'd like to do another Terraform example. And I'm going to provision some machines with Terraform. And then in Ansible, I'm going to show you Ansible working with the Leostream license flag. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to update my tfvars file for the next Terraform deployment. On to the next Terraform deployment. I just updated my tfvars file. What I modified was I changed some of the specs of the machines, and I also went ahead and set it to only deploy one broker and one gateway this time. So as before, we'll go ahead and run these commands. We'll do sudo terraform init to initialize the environment, sudo terraform plan, just showing what would happen. And we can see here, unlike the last time, we only see one broker listed instead of two because of the variables I set in that tf-vars file. So we're ready to go ahead and just run a sudo terraform apply. And we're going to type yes here. We can see here also one broker, one gateway based off the variables I changed. So we'll let this run and I'll be right back with you. So Terraform just completed provisioning the two machines, in this case one broker and one gateway. We can see the outputs here just like the last time, except for this time there's only one broker and one gateway. And in this specific example, I know I mentioned changing some of the specs of the machines. What I changed is I modified the memory of the gateway to 8 gigabytes, and I changed the disk space of the broker to 100 gigabytes, just trying to give you an example of showing that. So we'll move to vSphere. We can see the new broker and the new gateway created. And if we go into here, right-click Edit Settings of the broker, as mentioned, the hard disk is 100 gigabytes, so we can see that change went through. And I believe in the last example, the gateway was 4 gigabytes of memory, and I changed that to 8. So we'll go ahead and edit the settings of this, and here we can see that went through also. So I kind of just wanted to show you an example of using those parameters. Now that these machines are provisioned, we're ready for our second Ansible example, this time utilizing a serial number in an email. So we'll clear our screen. We can navigate back a directory, and we're in the Leo-vSphere-automation folder. From here, we're going to navigate to the Ansible folder. And just like last time, we're going to go to group vars, which is the variables that we would change. And in here, we're going to update this broker file. So all I'm going to change in that first line, I'm going to switch it from external database to license. So I'll pause real quick, I'll complete that, and I'll be right back. Okay, I just changed that broker.yaml file, the variable at the top, from using external database to a license option. So now we're ready to run Ansible. We'll clear our screen, and I just want to show you here the error you would get if you tried sudo ahead of time. So sudo ansible-playbook, and remember I'm in the Leostream-Ansible directory already, which contains our inventory.ini and our site files, so we won't need to specify the path. And -i, we do need to specify that for the inventory.ini, site.yaml. And we can see here, failed to connect via SSH. This is because the SSH key is located under the Jeff user when I created it, so it's just something to keep in mind. So I'll go ahead and run the same command without sudo now. And we can see it's starting to do all the automation just on the two machines because there's only two in our inventory.ini file created from Terraform this time, which would be one broker and one gateway. So I'll go ahead and let this run. Once it's done, we can run through the commands and we'll make sure everything's working on these. So Ansible just finished running for this example. I'll go ahead and just walk through this file and we'll look at the differences. One of the first differences we can see, as I just mentioned, is it's only running on two hosts because this time I just specified one broker and one gateway. We see the common tasks running. And down here, the difference would be we see the task apply Leostream license running. We see the output of this command. And we can see it skipping all the database steps since we're using the license variable. And then we see the gateway installing. So what we'll go ahead now is we'll just make sure everything's working again, just like the last time. So we'll cat our inventory.ini file just to easily gather the IPs of the broker and the gateway. And then we'll move to our web browser. So we'll start with the broker. Now, since this is a license install, this will be a brand new broker. So what we can see here is there's no SAML set up. I don't need the admin flag to log in. And we could just try and log in with the default credentials. And we can see it's using an internal database. And if we look anywhere in here, this will be a brand new broker, so there'll be nothing in here. Now we'll navigate back and we'll check our gateway because the gateway still will forward logins to the broker. So go ahead and go back here and check our gateway. And we'll see the same with the gateway. We'll see internal database and no users. So that was the example of utilizing the license install. So now that I've shown you an example of utilizing Terraform and Ansible with both connecting to an existing external database and the license install, that'll be the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Appreciate your time. Have a good one.